Welcome, everybody.
I thought I heard it wrong. I don't even know what it means. So I'd like to understand what that concept is.
At least my viewpoint. And Meena is absolutely right that it's a concept that we actually grew up with, because we have the idea of the Daivi, the goddess who needs nobody else. And the Daivi is the essence of energy. And she is not required to be within time or outside time. She is everywhere. And it's never a single figure that is identified as Devi, but she has many roop or incarnations, one may say, 51 major incarnations. But the idea of the unitary woman is the woman not being necessarily linked to anything else, that she's wholesome and powerful in herself.
Should I pitch in?
Sure.
Yeah, so I would like to use here a concept which is favorite of mine, which has got to do with this whole concept of androgyny, which is to do with Ardhanarishwar, which is the idea being that this particular unitariness, has a lot to do with the fact that the masculine and the feminine coexist simultaneously in the context of being androgyny, which means that this exists in its autonomy. It is not dependent on anything else outside of it. Now, one might ask, what about the counterpart? What about a man? Is a man unitary? I think a man who has enough of the feminine. And this concept, by the way, is getting to be more and more Western also, because there is a tradition of a thought process which is coming to the Western tradition by virtue of the fact that Virginia Woolf invokes it. More than Virginia Woolf, Caroline Heilbron of USA also talked about it in the 70s by writing a book called Towards Androgyny. Now, this is actually a very new form of, or a fresh form of feminism that is being, not feminism, but a feministic kind of writing that has actually come into being in the last 30 or 40 years and getting to be a little more complex now, because we are also pitching in with our concept of Ardhanarishwar. And then therein, there is a whole novel by this name, Ardhanarishwar in Hindi, which is in a discursive way talking about what is this half man, half woman situation? How does one complement the other? Is it the masculine and the feminine, and the energy of the feminine getting triggered off by the masculine, and the energy of the masculine getting triggered off by what is invoked in the feminine? So it's a little complex, but I think this is what one also sees in some of these images, Meena, which you have used, which is like, you call it vortex of hues, but they are not mere hues. They are actually whiffs, as it were, of energy coming out, which are images, which can be translated in art as images. But if you really look at them very carefully, and if you have a whole setting in your mind about what is androgyny, you begin to see that a woman is not just to be reduced into being a feminine self only. It has the masculinity of, or the power of, a thrust that can go beyond the body. I don't know if I'm able to put it in the way that it, I understand it, but it's complex, and the nuances are very, very complicated. Combined with this, if we bring in the mythological stories, which I am not able to at the moment, because I'm not equipped with my mythology, but I am, in a sense, myself an androgyny, I think. Thank you.
Well, I hope that answers you, Jolene.
Could I just ask, what was the name of that deity that the first speaker referred to? Can I have the spelling of that?
Yeah, it's D-E-V-I, Devi. Devi
D-E-V,
is a generic
Got it.
name for goddess, but it's a
D-E-V-I.
generic name. D-E-V-I,
Okay, generic name for goddess.
A goddess.
Okay,
goddess.
So, Yogesh, would you like to add something to Unitary Woman?
I don't think I've explored that
Mhm.
concept, to any extent in my poetic work. So it
Mhm.
would be wrong for me to kind of come up with anything. But what I find actually in your work is the feminism I actually appreciate, because your work actually celebrates women, in various forms of colors you pick up, and as if you mold them on the canvas, but also now in the form of digital art as well. And also the day-to-day representation of a woman, which can be within the definite lines of her shape, is also taken out of it. And that then you're taking the whole concept of the woman's, actually womanhood itself, the enigma of the cosmosis of emotions,
yes.
which you are taking and reshaping it in the form of expression which comes across. And that really is something I haven't seen in most of the feminist writing, and also in poetry. So from that point of view, I have always been admirer of your work, because every time I pick up, your previous book, She, and look at the colors, you're not looking at the shapes, but you're looking at the way the colors interact and reveal what you're trying to say, is always, as Sukrita previously mentioned, the meaning is not definite. It is constantly an emerging entity. It's explosion of energy, like in the universe. There is just no shortage of energy. And this particular kind of work, what I find is that it brings out a lot of that sort of energy, and I enjoyed your painting from that point of view. So yeah, my own perspective is that I always say to you before as well, that this is the kind of feminism which is a celebration of the woman, is something I really appreciate in your work, and in your work. And as far as the debates about the Devihood and Deviism or anything else associated with the generic term are they can go into the arena of politics and cultural wars and everything else. But that part of the feminism has got its place, but it's something when it comes to like this sort of art, it just makes it completely different and opposite to it, and that's what I enjoy.
Thank
I
you
hope
so
I
much.
But
explained myself.
what came to my mind was also this whole concept of Purusha and Prakriti that we have, which is, I think, very much there in the way that you are making the Prakriti as a kind of a ball of energy of a
Yeah.
sort, which does not function without the Purusha also. So the surrounding is all Purusha, as it were. And Prakriti, I think what we need to do is to interpret this mythology in contemporary terms, And we haven't yet done that. As much as there is a need, we haven't really filled up those gaps. But I think we need to work on it. Some of us who have been dabbling in, call it mythology or feminism or, these concepts of Daivi, for instance, I think we need to go deeper and realize that there is a multiplicity, one, of meanings, and two, of its application, traditional application vis-a-vis the contemporary one. I think all of this needs a different kind of vocabulary now for the East to speak to the West and the West to understand it.
Pratap, you need to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question to Meena, but before that, just for Jolene, the word Devi, which means a female goddess, it has many, in English language also, in European languages like Dios meaning God, Deus in French meaning goddess. And, words like theology, they come from the same old Indo-European root, Devi, Dios, Deus, theology, all those theo and like theocratic, all those are the same origin. Just to tell you that, it's not a very different word, They're related to many English and European
Yes.
words.
Yeah, Bhushan, you can go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, I want to say this very honestly that this has been the best morning of 2025 for me. I'm very happy to be here among all of you and to be listening to such a wonderful session, which is almost a kind of a spiritual training, for an individual. So hearty congratulations to you, Meena. Wonderful body of work. Probably this is a great example of where reason stops and mesmerism starts, the enchanting, beautiful world where the colors blend so beautifully to create an impression in you which lasts longer than reason can comprehend. So with these few words, I just want to once again congratulate you and the panel. I'm so very impressed by the panel of speakers here, and Mike Douglas is here. So grateful to you for supporting all of us. Thank you very much.
Mention that
Mike.
as a man working with talented women every day. One of the maybe underrepresented strengths is uncertainty, because men will tell you what it is and what it looks like and define it for you. Whereas we're listening to artists interested and inspired to explore what it could be. And I think this is an undervalued strength of women that is a huge factor in everything good that is happening in our society. So thank you.
To say, somebody else has just said this, and I'm also finding it quite an incredible morning. There have been different things that my mind is kind of latched onto. Sakrita, I think you mentioned along with androgyny, a ball of energy. My mind is just ricocheting around and picking up on things and turning them over. And then I find it going back decades ago when I was first being introduced by some other friends to some writing by women who were our feminists. And it's another book of she, Meena, and he, written by, I believe, in the first name, Ellen Dinerstein, who was a student of and now I've blanked. Oh, not Freud. Oh, my goodness. Jung, who was a student of Jung. Very skinny volumes, exploring the masculine, I guess, exploring the feminine. And it was like, whoa, it's like the shades were thrown back, the light floods in. And that was the beginning of quite a journey for me. And now this is coming around a whole other way. And I'm really feeling so excited by hearing different people's experiences of what Meena's put in front of us, because the energy, the androgyny, I feel like our world needs an awful lot of stuff. And I have to tell you, rampant certain kinds of energy are just so highly difficult to appreciate, like really difficult. And I was remembering what Dinner Scene had said is that perhaps, and I think now, and say people who are men would have a different understanding of how to be in the world if they had to be in that position of nurturing and protecting life, and that their whole relationship to the environment, the natural world around us, would be so different. And I'm thinking, yes, we could use a lot of that. And the way we're being presented with a whole other way to experience being with what Meena has put in front of us, I find it so exciting and hopeful. And I really think we need some hope. I really do.
I think a lot has to do with the idea of how our so-called civilizational forces, East and West,
Yes.
have created binaries,
Yes.
you know, and
True,
also
very true.
dichotomies.
Yes.
And I think the circle has to
Yes.
come around to completion somewhere. And then, of course, it's a spiral. It can go elsewhere. But so far, I think the kind of binaries and the dichotomies and the borders that we have created for ourselves, that is what is creating a huge problem, because we don't know how to make it come together. And this is the kind of art, what Meena has produced, this is the kind of art that makes you understand that it's all fluid.
Yes.
Hey, listen, there are no borders. And it can go out of you and it can come back and then yet go in another direction. And it goes on and it's very musical. So if art, physical art can become music, it is like this, you see. It's music. It's music. It's opening up a certain kind of a symphony, you know. It's a symphony of living. And what you used, I think, is something very important. The word being, the idea of being, which has no dichotomy at all, no binary at all. Yeah. So how do we come to that sense of, call it, even if it is a transient sense, but that of completion, you know, and yet be uncertain because you don't know where it's going. And that is the excitement in the creative excitement in the idea of being.
And Mike gets to live with that uncertainty.
And she's also able to blend what we might think is very traditional and ancient with the most modern and ultra modern. You know, that point, is really important from my point of view.
Yeah.
Because when we think of ancient, we think it's not relevant to the modern, or it may not be applicable to the modern. Right. But how she blends the two is shows us that truth and reality and ultimate reality beyond reason is seamless. It's the same probably 10,000 years ago. It's the same today. But how do you structure it and how do you present it before today's audiences is, I think, one of the greatest achievements of Meena in this genre.
It's such an experience to have that, and it is transient. You're right, Sakrita. It's not there all the time, and hopefully, I'm remembering back to some teaching times when certain students, they came back to visit people and they would say, oh, and you've got to read this book. And they are so hungry. And I know some of the students taking the religions and philosophy course. Oh my gosh, miss, my head doesn't think that way. It's so exciting. And I'm just passing, but I really like it. And I think there is such a hunger for people who are of different times to be able to open and to expand and feel all of this. And the fact, Meena, that you're able to be doing this in a form that's accessible for this. Oh my goodness. I get kind of goosebumps with it. I really am excited by it.
May I
I
ask?
want to go back.
I think what Meena, one more statement and that's it. I think the intuitive and the rational, when they come together, that is the sense of being that one can get out of art like this, of all good art. When you can bring the intuitive along with the rational or merge into the rational. And I think in your case, if we were to probe you deeper, like even as a poet or an artist that I also paint, and if I am posed this question, it'll be very difficult for me to think of where I was intuitive and where I was rational. I needed to be rational to be able to work out my creative process. What is the process through which I will make my intuition work? And so the logical comes into being on its own, right? Along with the following of the intuition. So it's really the marvel of the creative process, which always remains mysterious.
Oh, I think that's so, sorry. I think that's so important. And I think somebody else had asked earlier what your process is, how do you start? And I think it's so important to honor that process and to realize that it is there potentially in everyone. We damp it down and maybe don't have access, don't have it supported. But that's actually what I pin my hope on, trying to find how that's kept alive. And that actually, we have so much to thank Mississauga Arts Council for with that, because that's a realization that that's a huge contribution to civilization as we know it in Mississauga, as we know it in, Peel and on and on. And it's an incredibly important force. And I think it's a time right now we really need that force alive. So anyway.
May I ask a question as an artist? Sorry, I know everybody here has been talking as a writer, but as an artist, Meena, it's been beautiful. So excuse my voice as I'm a bit throaty as well. I really know, I'm in awe, and I'm so honored to be here and among you. I have an art group, as some of you know, and my art group is multinational. So Meena, thank you so much for inviting me, because I have people from India and Pakistan and Iran and all over the world in my art group. And I'm just learning constantly. So I just love hearing so much of what you're speaking about, and I'm soaking it up. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and being writers. And so I'm sitting here going, okay, I have to absorb all this, but I'm also in school. So I have to leave soon because I've got to do some writing of my own. So what I noticed about your presentation was that early on, the figures that you were showing were very similar. The female body, the spiritual significance, the birds, the butterflies, beautiful symbolism. And then all of a sudden, we had a dramatic change in your art. So there was, what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, I'm getting tired. Abstract. It was very abstract, very colorful. Like, I'm an abstract artist, so I kind of went, wow, here's Meena. I'm loving this. It's just gorgeous. So what made you change? And then you went from there to the water. And so what inspired you to go to the abstract after doing all the she and the beautiful symbolism of all that?
it's difficult to answer, but in my art, abstract and figurative many times come together. But if you see even the figurative, it is not absolutely figurative.
No,
A bit
of course. Yeah.
of abstraction is also there, but probably from there, it at times it starts becoming more abstract in some cases.
Yeah.
So, basically, even I'm delve a lot into abstract, but my abstract starts from something concrete. And as I said earlier, it's just I am not thinking consciously when I'm on a canvas or on a paper. It just comes and then I sit down and then structure it.
Same with me.
Yeah.
Intuitively. Yeah. Thank you, Meena. It's just beautiful.
Thank you.
Congratulations. I will look forward to the book. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, Zora?
Yeah, I was
Okay.
just, I'm absolutely amazed. I'm hardly ever speechless, but I feel speechless. The thing is, with the passion, I call myself having a zesty retina. So with a zesty retina, passion for music and poetry, and all that put together with this in such a dramatic and modern, combining it with a modern art or digital media, I think I just feel like I made a trip to someplace very heavenly, and I will reflect on it for a long time, and I can hardly lay my hands on your book. Thank you so much. And actually, I must say the speakers, every single one of you, intellectuals, and it gave me a little bit more insight into Daivi I knew, and a few others references, but some more references I noted down, and I'm going to look up at them. So beautiful speakers, and I congratulate Bhupinder, you and Meena and Mike Douglas for supporting this Art Council and all the background stuff that is helping videotape it. Thank you so much for this morning treat. Absolutely.
Thank you, Zora. Sunilji, you want to say something?
Yes, actually, I couldn't help it. First of all, hearty congratulations to Meena ji. It was an immersive experience.
Really.
Multimedia. I really enjoyed it. In an age when there is a surfeit of virtual programs, events, I really come back completely enriched.